that just got buried, and like they hold a lot of wisdom, even the little ones,
Hmm.
maybe
Yeah.
you need to pick up a coloring book. you know
Well,
they
they
make
have
adult
adult.
coloring books now.
Yeah, exactly. I was just saying that. It's okay.
Yeah.
Just,
Be
I
careful by
mean,
what you think of an adult coloring book,
Yeah,
Amanda.
that's
no.
true. Let's preface that.
Yeah, be careful when you Google that. So,
Goodness
Yes.
gracious.
no, that's really good. And so I kind of want to ask both of you this because I think this is, and I can only speak for myself, but I don't think I'm that uncommon. How do you help pastors not feel guilty for exploring and spending time with their hobbies?
I personally haven't had a hard time with the pastors feeling guilty about it. We more have had to work on people in the congregation questioning, attacking them. So like if they're feeling guilty, it's not a guilt from within, it's a put on guilt. And
Okay,
then that goes back to the boundaries. That
sure.
also goes back to, educating the people in our congregations about the importance of mental health and time off and all, balance,
Mhm.
work-life balance. In so many, at least for us, but we're in Houston. So there's tons of, super high executive, oil and gas and
Right.
tech and all of that kind of stuff. And so the people that I work with a lot of the congregations are filled with executives. Who are out of balance. So sometimes there's some of the ones who are pushing back,
Yeah.
but also going back to they also understand the work-life balance analogy of, okay, in corporate world, when I hopefully leave for the day, I'm done for the day. So applying some of those things and using some of that language, it can be a bridge. It's not always a bridge, but it can at times be a bridge to the people that are in the congregations and helping them kind of re-look at things so they're not um, putting guilt on somebody for taking time for themselves and nurturing themselves or being with their family and nurturing those relationships.
Okay.
I don't know, a thought.
Yeah, I think some of it is giving yourself permission to, and again, these are some of the voices that are out there, Kirk. So I would agree with Kristen. Typically, where the guilt comes from is, oh my goodness, what is somebody going to think if I leave this afternoon at 2:30 and go play a round of golf?
Mhm.
Um, and I would tell you that for probably 25 years of my ministry, I cared. I'm at the point now where if you want my job, you're welcome to have it. Go to the seminary. If Salem's willing to call you to be their senior pastor, I'm happy to step aside. In the meantime, I'm the senior pastor of this church. I've got my armrest. This is who I am.
Mhm.
I do my job and I do it well. I believe I've got some gifts and some abilities and have learned to lead and lead well. Can I continue to grow? Absolutely, which is why conversations like this, I continue to go to counseling, I continue to read, I continue to get educated, those kinds of things. But look, I know myself better than any of these people who seem to think that they know me because they've listened to me speak for 20 minutes on a Sunday morning and have quite the opinion about who I am. Um, and so you can just hear in me, like I'm just to the point of you don't know me. You don't get to declare who I am. You don't get to define whether or not I'm doing a good job or not a good job. I think that's one of the challenges within the church and one of the things that has become really settled for me that I'm so grateful for, Kirk, which is I have a structure now here at Salem where I'm answerable to a governing board, that we set three significant goals that I'm supposed to accomplish by the end of the year. And you know what my annual evaluation is determined on? Not whether or not everybody in our congregation loves Tim. It's not whether everyone likes the music that was chosen last Sunday. And like none of that is part of my evaluation. I have three goals. If I hit them, it was a good year.
Mm.
And it's that simple. And so for me, just to get to a spot where I don't let all that stuff put pressure on me, and I can go play golf at 2:30 in the afternoon because I know I'm getting done what I need to get done. And I know that me playing golf on a Thursday afternoon with my son recharges me. And I am a better pastor, a better husband, a better father, a better community leader when I'm charged. Because I know what I became when I got to fumes. And that was not, that there was no part of that that was helpful.
I think helping people figure out what drains you and what fills you, and really wrestling through and digging deeper than the surface answers of those. That's going to help people understand who they are, but it's also going to help them figure out what are the things that I need to either incorporate in my life or do more of, or I'm doing these things and I need to protect them because these are the things that fill me up versus deplete me. And, going back to the analogy in the airplane, you got to put the mask on first before you can put it on the person next to you. So if you're depleted, you can't be serving your congregation as well as you could be if you're coming from a place where you're more full, you're more complete.
Yeah. And I think every congregation member would say, hey, we want our pastor functioning at their best. But here we have this issue, right, where these expectations of pastors, because even, you can't, like the corporate world, okay, I'm done at 5 o'clock, I clocked out,
Right.
and I leave it
Right.
there. Pastors can't do that. You as a therapist can't do that. But there's strategies that you try, you have to work towards okay, I can leave this here, it's still going to be there, and there's different strategies that we work for different people. But the reality is just in your profession, Kristin, and pastoral profession, people come, and I like to say they just vomit all over you.
Yep.
Feel better, and they walk out of the office, and you're stuck with all of this, right? And so, and that is so we have to learn strategies of how do we do that. And that's kind of some of the work I do is just to make sure that we're taking the time to pause and reflect in a healthy manner, right? And what what congregation members are doing. So what do you think would be a good strategy, or you have this to help churches and church members understand the value of mental health for their pastor?
I think we have to be more intentional in educating. It's a lack of education.
Okay.
And I think you also need to know your setting. What generations are you working with? And what were the cultural and societal norms when they were kind of growing up and in the prime of their life? So unfortunately, a lot of our older generation doesn't value counseling because you would never air your dirty laundry. And so you really have to know the culture really of your congregation, and then figure out, okay, how do I start educating that culture to make shifts if a shift needs to be made. If you're a congregation that's all younger people, truly like younger people, there really is going to be a greater understanding because some of those societal norms really have changed. Some of the stigma has changed. We are making progress in certain areas. And so it's just talking about it. The more Tim and I have started to talk about that harder season in ministry for us that we went through and, we've come out of, when we're open, then suddenly people are like, okay, I want to talk about this. I want, this has happened to me too, or how did that happen? It generates a conversation. So, I want to encourage people to be vulnerable and be willing to talk about it, but also within the safety, because again, you got to know your audience, you got to know your culture. You don't want to inflict more trauma by trying to be open, so there is gambling, juggling going on there. But the more I think we keep putting it in front of people, and educating them, the better it's going to be.
No, I think that's a really good point. I presented 5 sessions at the Southern Workers Conference about a year and a half ago, and you could see that demographic of the guys who've been in ministry years who were older just really struggled because I front load my presentation with a lot of psychological facts. Here's some research, right? And let's understand why this is important. And then the younger guys were just eating it up because they're in a culture where they tell everybody, "Hey, my therapist said this week," or whatever, and so it's a different thing. And so how would you, I know Tim's answer to a pastor who is resisting going to counseling would just say, "You're an idiot, go to counseling," right? But how would you encourage these generational challenges within the church? Because you can talk about it. I sit there and I'm listening to him. Well, if I'm a pastor talking about it, and I could see older people, older generation, not in my context of great people, going, "Well, we have a weak pastor." If he thinks that
right.
So how would you? What's some strategies maybe you think that would help? Let's talk just about older pastors for a minute who have just put their heads down and gone forward and say, "Well, Jesus is enough. I don't need anything else." How would you encourage them to break out of that mindset? Besides calling me an idiot, sorry.
I think you got to start with, if you can't go to a counselor to do this, then you figure out what are the 3 to 5 statements that you're going to stick in your armrest of your car, so that you can figure out who you are, so that then, so to use just the words that you just said. So if I'm standing in front of my congregation or my leadership team or whatever, and I'm basically making a request of, would it be possible for the church to put a line item in for me to be able to go to a counselor once a month, or whatever the case may be. And somebody's like, well, we have a weak pastor, that I'm able to, in that moment, because that's not what the list in my armrest says.
Yeah.
I'm the fact that I'm asking for counseling does not make me weak. It actually makes me strong. It actually will help make me stronger. It actually is a sign of strength that I'm willing to acknowledge weaknesses that I have, or that I have a place of need and I'm learning to ask for what I need. I think that was always one of the greatest. It's been one of the biggest bugaboos in our marriage, is my ability to ask for what I need, because Kristin still, to this day, I mean, for crying out loud, we've been married for 30 years, and I still, when I have to at any level feel needy, man, I don't like that feeling, Kirk. Like I recoil from it. I don't want to be the needy guy. I want to be the strong guy. I want to be the provider guy, the whatever, the answer guy, not the needy guy. Who wants to be the needy guy? But and so and that's what I'm saying. Like, you've got to redefine that. Yeah. We all have needs, and let's stop kidding ourselves that we don't. And then it's educating our congregation, patience, but the calm confidence of that I know who I am. So when somebody says you're weak or whatever, and I doubt a congregation member would quite say it like that, but they might. I mean, crying out loud, some of the stuff people have said to me is fascinating.
Fascinating.
But just a willingness to be able to listen, and then internally just kind of flush that and go, not true. It's not true. So now I'm going to calmly come back with my need again. I hear what you're saying, Kirk. And I appreciate that that's where you happen to be at. I, on the other hand, am in a spot where I recognize that for me to be the best that I can be, I would like to put this back on the table again, that I really could use somebody to be able to process with, because, and maybe bring statistics, all that kind of stuff. But yeah.
I think, if I understood, part of your question was, what do you do if if the pastor's actually resistant to it, not so much the congregation? In there, I see that as very similar to, like when I'm working with one spouse, I don't do marriage counseling. I work with individuals.
I'm all she can handle, Kirk.
but like if I'm working with one spouse and the other spouse does not want to go to counseling, ultimately you can't force somebody to go to counseling. You cannot convince them. They have to get to the point where they want to go. So, those pastors or those church workers or wives that don't want to go because they see it as a weakness or they should have all the answers. First of all, I would say you're listening to Satan's lies that he's whispering in your head to keep you out of counseling, because there you're going to grow. And Satan wants to keep you stagnant and wants you to shrink, not grow. Okay, but you're going to hit a bottom, whether it's burnout, whether it's health problems, whether it's a marriage on the rocks, whether it's a relationship on the rocks, whatever.
Unhealthy ways of coping.
Unhealthy ways of coping. Like we would like to catch you before that, but ultimately I can't convince you that you need counseling and that counseling is okay. You kind of have to get there to yourself. And like, I also hear a lot of excuses. Well, we can't afford it. Nowadays, I cry BS from the standpoint of, insurance companies help pay for stuff. We are fortunate. I don't know about other districts, but the Texas district, Mike Newman cares. So his church workers' mental health is one of his top priorities. And I work with the district all the time where they are either completely paying for somebody's therapy for as long as I feel they need to be there and they're making progress, or paying for part of it. I don't know that other districts feel that same way and have that same thing. I hope they do, because it is a huge blessing in our district. But there could be district help. There is ways to get the help that you need if you're finally to the point where you're willing to say, you know what, I could use talking to somebody.
Yeah, and I think that would be the first step, is the district, right? And then go from there. But yeah, it's great.
Well, a lot of people are afraid to approach the district because they're afraid of what, like, would there be any retaliation depending on their coping strategies? Like, you could lose a job, right? So like, there is some carefulness there. Now in our district, I don't tell Mike who the person is. I don't say, hey, Kirk, I don't even know what your last name is, Triplet, wants to be seen. Like, I just say, hey, I have a pastor who approached me, wants to work on some stuff, and Mike is great, have at, okay. And so there's complete confidentiality in our district. I hope that's the same in other districts.
Well, there's such a pastor shortage now that it doesn't matter. They're not get rid of anybody anyway. So.
Right.
Yeah, Tim, you were going to add something?
I was just going to add one thing, and I know we're hitting up on our time.
Sure.
One of the things that Kristin said just triggered something in my mind. I still remember I had made a promise to Kristin that I would get a cardiologist when I turned 50, and so I went and got a cardiologist. My joke with her was she didn't tell me that by getting that was going to get me 5 more appointments, with all these tests in order to get the baseline and figure all this stuff out. Anyway, what was interesting was when my cardiologist walked in the room, he kind of sat down and he goes, "So why are you here?" And I said, "Well, because I turned 50 and I promised my wife I would get a cardiologist." And it was almost like he just sort of relaxed, Kirk. And he's like, "Tim, I can't tell you how much I wish more people would do this." He said, "The reality for me is that most of my clients I meet after the episode rather than before."
Yeah.
And all that's triggering for me is I wish that pastors could hear the same thing, right? Our mental health is real. You can pretend it's not, or you can ignore it, or think you've got the world by
Just
the
like
tail,
diabetes.
or whatever else. But eventually, if you ignore your mental health, you are going to get to fumes, or you're going to find some unhealthy ways to cope with your stress or something.
Your body's going to break down.
Something's going to snap. And so the question is, do you want to wait until that and then sort of be forced to the cardiologist? And then his point is, and then at that point, Tim, I have far fewer options.
Right.
Versus if you come to me at 50, when you have no clogged arteries and we can check your blood and blah, 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 and kind of pay attention and monitor some things. And he said, you're giving me lots of options. And so I wish people, I guess my hope for people would be seek help see your mental health much like you see your physical health. And that conversation with my cardiologist was very eye-opening for me, of just saying, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually, what are the steps we're taking to be healthy, rather than waiting until the collapse moment or the get found out moment or the
train derails.
Yeah. I always tell people, if you need knee surgery or something, you're going to find a good knee surgeon. They're not all good knee surgeons, but there are some really good ones out there. And I think the same with mental health and counseling is that there are good ones out there. They're not all good though. But just like if I had a ACL that was torn, I want a good doctor to fix it, and I'm not going to think twice about it. So, but there's also, to your point, Tim, there's strategies of health and exercise and diet that can prevent that from happening.
Prevent the ACL injury in the first place.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So Tim, tell me about a time when you've been built up in ministry. Let's kind of just wrap this up with a few things here.
Yeah, I would say I'm just to the point of, you can sort of trivialize this, but really, we've all heard it before, Kirk. When somebody just sends me a simple little text note of encouragement, hey, Tim, thanks for this. Or I'm just to the point where a simple thank you goes immensely far. And I'm just to the point of, I'm not going to surround myself with people who have nothing but negative stuff to say. Those people exist. I'm just to the point of, I'm just not going to give you much of my time. I'll acknowledge you, but I'm not going out to lunch with you. I'm not. But so there's that. But like maybe just a specific one would be, Chris and I have been blessed at this point with some folks that we've walked a bit of life with. We call them connect groups here, so small group, whatever you want to call them. And I've got one guy in there particular that will just every once in a while reach out to me and say, hey, Tim, can we go grab lunch? And he will he genuinely just, we don't talk church stuff unless I really want to. He just wants to take me out and see how I'm doing as a human being, as a dad, as a husband, as a guy who's trying to figure out this game of golf, all those kinds of things, right? And so he asks me about me. Yeah. I think what our congregation members don't fully understand, and I don't think we can get them to, Kirk, I don't even know how we would unwrap that, is I'm their pastor, so they're always talking to me about their stuff. And even when they're trying to talk to me about my stuff, it doesn't fully work. So having a guy that just sort of has gotten to know me over time and genuinely wants to know how Tim Niekerk's doing, not senior pastor Tim Niekerk at Salem Lutheran Church. So yeah, that's been a gift for me.
What's great is that that's all my work, really. I mean, that's what we find is that pastors' specific gratitude, hey, thanks for this, goes a long way. We're not very complicated. We're pretty simple.
For simple little things.
And then the guy who invites you to just say, hey, I just want to hang out, I care about you. Because I always tell people, when you get to a new church and someone invites you to dinner or something, the first question a pastor is, okay, what do they want? Right? What's the agenda here? But then the second invite is actually the more important one, because they're actually like, oh, we really just care about you. And finding those people that you can hang out and have an adult beverage with your adult coloring book. No, I'm just kidding.
Don't Google that.
Yeah, they just care about you. So let me ask you this, Kristin. What are some ways that church members, simple ways, can build the positive mental health of their pastor?
Honestly, be their biggest cheerleader.
Nice.
People do not, they so underestimate the power of the things like he said, whether it's sending a note, sending a text, speak well of your pastor. Like when you are out in public, when you're with other people, like speak well of them. Obviously pray for them, pray for their families, speak well of the family. Right. But it really, like I feel like it's an image that comes to mind when you hear cheerleader. Be their biggest cheerleader.
Yeah.
In all the ways.
Yeah.
I told Kristin when I retired, Kirk, like I'm dead serious about this. Like I told her I don't care what church we join. I'm going to be that pastor's, within reason, because his wife should be his number one cheerleader. But like, even if I don't agree with the guy, even if I think he really laid an egg on Sunday, even if I think we shouldn't have done, I don't. At this point in my life, I just don't care. Yeah. As long as he's preaching Jesus and making a difference, and I'm going to be the guy.
Moral, ethical, legal.
I'm going to be the guy that's going to send him a handwritten note once a month with a $25 gift certificate to Starbucks that just says, "Hey, dude, you're killing it. Thanks." Yeah. Hey, Kirk, really enjoyed your last message series on trust. Thanks for helping me in my walk. Here's $25 to Panera. All I'm going to do is
the little blessings. And I'm not just talking about like gift cards and stuff like that, but the little blessings mean more than people realize.
Yeah. Well, the genuine care is one of the things that really resonates with pastors. Someone heard me, they listened to me, and they truly care. It's a dumb example, but during COVID, a pastor was struggling to find vitamin C. He's an elderly pastor, and so he's reading everything they're supposed to be taking. And he's just in a fellowship, just having a conversation with people. And 2 days later, he walks into his office, and there's a big bottle of vitamin C on his desk.
Right.
Genuine.
Yep.
It's thoughtful. It's
right. Thoughtful and intentional. And that's something that I really think I'd love to get. So both, I love pastors to be intentional about their mental health, and I'd love congregations to be intentional about caring about their pastors for mental health. Okay, last question, and I'll frame it a little different for both of you, but we'll start with you, Tim. What is one way that a church member has made you smile in the last couple of weeks?
Church member made me smile.
And not because they tripped down the stairs or something. Okay.
Right.
No, I just did a really precious wedding within the last week, where not very often, Kirk, do I do a wedding where I know both families well. I mean, typically you know the member, and then there's the person that the kid has met or whatever. And in this case, I knew both families, have walked through some significant highs and lows with both families. And it was one of the smaller weddings I've ever done because it was just immediate family. And they had a personal note when we sat down at the table. Like I'm telling you, there were less than 30 people at this wedding. And so we were just invited into the family. There was no one but immediate family and Kristin and me. Mm-hmm. And they genuinely wanted us at dinner. We were just going to do the wedding and kind of slip out. And they said, "No, we really would like you to join us." And so we got there, and at both of our seats. Mm-hmm. So not just for Tim, but like there was a handwritten note from the bride. And every person's note was separate, man. And it just was a tender note as to, gosh, Kirk, I'm going to get emotional. Like I buried this girl's brother. Mm-hmm. And now I'm doing this wedding, and, just for her to say, "Your ministry has impacted our family." Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, pretty tender.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Kristin, as a pastor's wife, you can't use that example. But how has a church
It was a
member
good
made?
one.
Yeah, I know. How has a church member made you smile in the last couple of weeks?
Um, so here's the flip side of social media on a good note. Tim had a great sermon this past Sunday. And when Tim gets passionate, he starts speaking really fast. I mean, we're from the north, so and we live in the south, so we already speak fast, right?
Right,
So
I'm with you.
he speaks even faster, and he gets there's just this intensity that you feel, like you can feel it, and he is like on a roll. And there were two times, like there was one like a month ago where he was on his roll, and I looked at my son who was sitting next to us with his wife, and I'm like, wow, he's on a roll. He's had an extra shot of decaf or of espresso in his
Yeah.
coffee this morning. And the people around me like heard me, but they all turned and they laughed and they're like, he's always most passionate when he's like this. And because you know what it means. So there's that, but then coupled with, on social media, just yesterday, the day before, somebody shared from our website page or Salem's page. It was an image of him with, something that he had said in his sermon. And like people were reposting it, saying, this was amazing. He's so right on, blah, 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 blah. And it just made me smile because, well, one, he's my husband, but two, like, it was like he nailed it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it just made me smile and was like, yeah. So
What
the
Sunday
good
was
side
that?
of social media
Yeah.
instead
So
of
what
like all
Sunday
the
was?
crabbing.
Yeah. What Sunday was that? Everyone's going to go watch it now, right?
It was this past Sunday.
Okay. So it
It
would
was
have
about
been
trusting God with your kids.
March
We're finishing
2nd.
up a series on trust, and so it was
Nice.
from March, whatever it is, March 3rd,
March 2nd. March 2nd. Yeah.
And so it was closing out that series. It was Lutheran Schools Week, so we knew we were going to have a lot of families in the room, and so the theme was trusting God with our children.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
There you go.
Well, any last words you want to share with anybody about church work and positive mental health or anything like that?
if you don't have a counselor, you're an idiot.
Go get
Yeah.
one. Prepping for this, I looked up on Barna.
Yeah.
Just looked at counseling with pastors. And we need to change this statistic. So this is a little call to action here, right? 39% of pastors say that they seldom or never talk to someone about their mental health, while a far greater percentage, 75%, say that they have seldom or never met with a counselor. That needs to change. That needs to change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So this is the call to action of take care of yourself.
yeah.
Mental health is just as important as physical health, spiritual health. It's all one. They're tied together. And God made us needing all of them, not just one.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that you're doing, Kristin, and then Tim, is that creating awareness, but also influencing as much as you can, getting your district president to show the benefits to other district presidents.
Yeah.
And here's the results. This is what's happening, and this is why it's good. And I know a lot of district presidents, it's on their radar. How to do it. I know that Southern District, Irish Portland, Georgia, one of them has a counseling service on retainer all the time, and so I know that there's help out there, but it needs to be more accessible. You know, I would love to see districts continually sending stuff to church leaders and the pastor saying, "We have this available for you." Or I would even say, if districts presidents that say, "We are requiring." Yeah, can't do that. I know that's a hard thing to do, but we strongly encourage you to make this part of your budget, or to say, hey, we have access to this, and pastors should. And then how do we get the circuit visitors involved in that too? And that's a whole different, we won't even get into that because we don't have time, and we won't have an answer when we're all done. So that's just neither here nor there. Anyway.
Well, Kirk, Great to spend some time with you.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Yeah, so I really appreciate it. Thanks for all the work you're doing. We appreciate how you are helping the church grow and build one another up in love so that the church will flourish. Again, please like, share, and subscribe, and we will see you next time.